Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to grow quietly while others remain stuck in the same place, repeating the same frustrations, chasing the same approval, and never quite moving forward? Here's a truth most people overlook. Real transformation doesn't happen when you're constantly explaining yourself. It doesn't come from being louder, faster, or more visible. It happens in silence, in the moments no one witnesses, the early mornings, the disciplined choices, the quiet work that slowly reshapes you from the inside out. And that's where Stoicism strikes deepest, because it doesn't ask you to perform. It asks you to focus, to develop inner strength so solid that the outside world can't shake it. Today, we're exploring why silence is not weakness, it's a strategy, and how directing your energy inward without needing to be seen unlocks a level of clarity and strength most people never experience. The people who truly shape their own lives, the rare individuals who reach a level of success that is not only external, but deeply internal, understand something most of the world misses. They've discovered a kind of wisdom that doesn't need an audience. They're not obsessed with broadcasting every step or defending every decision. They don't live in explanation mode. While others are busy trying to win arguments, earn approval, or craft the perfect image, these individuals are quietly and relentlessly building. They move with calm certainty, the kind that comes from not depending on validation. They've learned to find peace in steady progress and meaning in discipline. And here's the paradox. The less they speak, the more powerful they appear. There is something magnetic about people who operate in silence. You can feel it when you're around them. Their presence communicates without words. You sense their focus, their clarity, their inner stillness, and none of it comes from trying to impress anyone. Plato once said, "Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something." Silence isn't about losing your voice. It's about ensuring that when you do speak, it carries substance rather than noise. But what exactly makes silence so powerful? Is it simply restraint? Is it avoiding small talk or staying away from drama? Not quite. Real silence, the kind that changes you, is not passive. It isn't just the absence of speech. It's the presence of depth. It is active and intentional. It's where awareness sharpens, where your thoughts settle, where your energy gathers and reorganizes itself. Silence isn't empty. It's filled with insight, possibility, and clarity. When you step away from the constant stimulation of the world, your mind doesn't shut down. It shifts into a different mode. In that stillness, something remarkable begins to happen. You start seeing yourself more clearly. The mental fog slowly lifts. The road ahead begins to reveal itself, not because someone else handed it to you, but because you finally created the space for it to appear. Carl Jung expressed this beautifully. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. In silence, you wake up to your own patterns. You begin hearing the stories you've been repeating inside your mind. You confront the discomforts you've been numbing with noise. And that's exactly why many people avoid silence, because it is honest. It doesn't allow you to hide. In quiet moments, your doubts appear. Your guilt surfaces. Your insecurities rise to the surface. And instead of facing them, many people reach for distractions, scrolling their phone, opening another tab, arguing with someone online, anything to avoid sitting alone with themselves. But avoidance is never neutral. What you avoid doesn't disappear. It simply buries itself deeper, quietly draining you from the inside out. It fragments your focus. It plants confusion into your decisions, and before long, you begin wondering why you feel exhausted even when you haven't done much. Why you feel stuck even when you're constantly busy. That's the weight of unprocessed thoughts, the cost of unresolved tension. So why do we keep choosing the noise? Because we've been conditioned to believe that being seen equals being valuable. The more attention we receive, the more important we feel. But Aristotle warned about this long before social media ever existed. The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. Constantly chasing attention is a form of survival, a way to escape the deeper work, but it keeps the mind restless, always reacting and rarely reflecting. What would happen if you stopped reacting? If you stopped explaining yourself and simply moved with quiet confidence? What if you observed more than you spoke, acted more than you posted? You would save enormous energy. You would reclaim the mental bandwidth that has been leaking through 1,000 trivial interactions. And that energy could be invested in mastery, in building something meaningful, in shaping a life that feels aligned, not just admired. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living," and silence, true reflective silence, is where that examination begins, not guided by algorithms, trends, or applause, but by honest self-inquiry, by the kind of stillness that allows your most authentic self to emerge. Your brain, despite what the modern world suggests, isn't designed to process thousands of opinions every single day. It's not built for constant multitasking, endless reacting, or continuous comparison. It's designed to concentrate, to evaluate, to adapt. But when it becomes flooded with noise, gossip, endless scrolling, unnecessary drama, it begins to malfunction. You stop thinking clearly. You stop feeling grounded. The sharpness that once made you decisive, focused, and purposeful begins to fade. And what's the real price of that? Not just fatigue, not just distraction. You lose your intuition. You dull the very instinct that once helped you make courageous moves. That slow erosion of inner clarity is far more dangerous than any single failure. Because when clarity disappears, trust in yourself disappears with it. You hesitate. You second-guess every step. But what if you chose another path? What would your life look like if you reclaimed your attention and directed it inward? What kind of person might you become if your identity wasn't built on how the world sees you, but on how deeply you understand yourself? What level of progress could you reach if you didn't need that progress to be loud? If you simply did the work quietly, patiently, and allowed the results to speak on their own? Ask yourself something honestly. How often are you losing moments, opportunities, even entire days, reacting to meaningless distractions? Not because those distractions are powerful, but because they're persistent. A message here, a headline there, a pointless argument that lingers in your mind far longer than it should. And before you realize it, the day is gone, not invested, scattered. You feel drained not from effort but from fragmentation, like 1,000 tiny cuts that don't drain you instantly but slowly steal your focus, your motivation, your clarity. How often do you feel exhausted, not from physical strain, but because your attention has been pulled in too many directions? That isn't just a feeling, it's a neurological reality. Your brain, particularly your prefrontal cortex, is built for deliberate thinking, deep focus, and long-term vision. It thrives in clarity, not chaos. When you give it silence, it resets, it recalibrates, it begins to concentrate again. And from that quiet space, something most people never fully access begins to surface: control. But what is control, really? It's not about dominating others or suppressing emotions with rigid force. Control is self-mastery. It's when your actions stay aligned with your values, whether anyone is watching or not. Aristotle once said, "What lies in our power to do lies in our power not to do." Real control means choosing not to react, not to prove yourself, not to perform for attention. And that ability lives in your prefrontal cortex, not in the limbic system that urges you to scroll, argue, or compare, but in the part of you that plans, focuses, and commits. There's something both psychology and philosophy agree on. Your identity is shaped not by what you claim, but by what you repeatedly do. You can tell the world you're disciplined, driven, and focused, but if your behavior says otherwise, your brain recognizes the truth. Carl Jung once expressed it clearly: you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. That's not just a philosophical idea, it's biology. Your brain rewires itself according to repeated actions. When you wake up early, exercise, resist distraction, your prefrontal cortex strengthens. Neural pathways become more solid. You're not simply acting differently, you're becoming someone different. But isn't motivation supposed to help with that? Isn't that what keeps us moving forward? Here's what most people misunderstand. Real motivation isn't external, it's neurological. You don't get lasting drive from applause, you get it from progress. Dopamine, the brain's motivation chemical, doesn't surge when someone praises you. It activates when you notice improvement, when you read another chapter, run one more mile, keep a promise you made to yourself. And the fascinating part is that this process works best in silence. In those quiet moments, no one sees the 6 a.m. discipline, the decision to eat intentionally, the choice to work instead of scrolling. That's when your brain quietly rewards you. So why are we so quick to announce our intentions before we've even begun? I'm going to get in shape. I'm writing a book. I'm building something big. It feels good to say these things. It creates the illusion of movement. But neuroscience shows a different reality. When you announce your goals too early, your brain releases dopamine as if the work has already been done. You receive a premature reward without the actual growth. Plato once said, "The beginning is the most important part of the work." But if you spend your energy making declarations, you rarely move beyond that beginning. Why does this matter? Because premature celebration is the enemy of discipline. When you confuse talking with doing, you trick your nervous system into believing you've already accomplished something. You build an identity based on perception rather than performance. And once the applause fades, you're left with no structure, no discipline, no momentum. So what's the alternative? Speak less. Do more. Let your actions construct the story. Let silence become the place where your new identity is forged. Not because you told the world who you're becoming, but because you quietly became that person. Real transformation doesn't come from posting declarations or collecting applause. It doesn't grow from perfectly written status updates or broadcasting your grand ambitions to the world. It emerges quietly and stubbornly through your daily systems. The small, repeated decisions you make when no one is watching. You wake up at the same time every morning. You show up for your workout, not because someone is tracking you, but because you committed to it. You open that book. You sit down with that project. You resist the urge to scroll, and through those actions, your brain slowly begins to rewire itself. Not in some abstract symbolic way, literally. Your neural pathways start shifting. You build new circuits of discipline, concentration, and drive. And what the world eventually notices as change is often just the result of a consistency they never saw. Why do people only recognize transformation after it has already happened? Because growth is mostly invisible. It unfolds in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the decision to try once more when quitting would have been easier. The world celebrates results, but it rarely sees the process. And this is where things become uncomfortable. Real growth doesn't only distance you from old habits, it separates you from old versions of yourself, and sometimes from people who are still attached to those versions. So what happens when your actions begin to change, but your environment stays the same? That's when friction appears. The people closest to you, friends, family, co-workers, start to question things. Not always out of hostility, but often out of discomfort. Your growth disrupts their sense of familiarity. It challenges the image they've always held of you. As Carl Jung observed, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And when you step into a new version of yourself, you unintentionally push others to reconsider who you are, and perhaps even who they are. Can you handle that? Can you stay silent in the face of confusion, criticism, or even ridicule? Can you continue walking your path without needing applause for every step? Because if you can, something rare and powerful begins to happen. You stop needing permission, you stop waiting to be understood, and in that moment, you become internally untouchable. You develop a form of resilience that isn't reactive, it's rooted. Not because doubt never appears, but because you've trained yourself to keep moving forward quietly despite it. This is what the Stoic philosophers meant by strength of character. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." There's no need to broadcast who you're becoming. No need to justify your standards or narrate your discipline. Simply become it, quietly and consistently. Look through history and you'll notice a pattern. The people who created lasting impact didn't waste energy explaining every move. They focused on execution, on becoming, on delivering results. Think about it. Lions don't announce themselves in the jungle. They move silently, focused, patient, precise. Surgeons don't shout during an operation. They act with calm attention, every movement intentional. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's presence, complete, focused presence. So what if your silence isn't emptiness, but a signal? What if it's not the absence of expression, but the highest level of discipline, the kind that doesn't beg to be noticed because it already understands its worth? The kind that doesn't chase applause because its reward is the quiet momentum building beneath the surface. That is the silence that transforms, the kind that eventually speaks so loudly that words become unnecessary. And the real question is, are you willing to become that person even if no one claps? Attention isn't just focus, it's energy, real biological energy. And like any form of energy, it's limited. You only receive a certain amount each day. Your brain runs on neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and acetylcholine, chemicals that power your ability to concentrate, plan, and act with intention. But those chemicals are not endless. Every time you check your phone without purpose, every time you open multiple tabs without committing to one, every time you argue simply to prove a point, you spend that energy. Bit by bit, distraction steals the mental clarity that could have been invested in building something meaningful, something that truly matters. How often do we give away our best hours to things that don't nourish us, don't challenge us, don't move us forward? It becomes almost automatic. But what if you chose silence instead? What if, in a moment of temptation, you paused, not out of avoidance, but as an act of strength? That pause changes everything, because when you choose silence, you choose clarity. You give your mind the breathing space it desperately needs to operate from strategy rather than stress. You allow the deeper layers of your mind, the parts responsible for long-term thinking, creativity, and identity, to take the lead. And here's the irony. Silence may appear still from the outside, but internally it's anything but. It's alive, dynamic, a battlefield of thoughts and emotions. Sitting in silence isn't passive, it's an act of courage. Why? Because silence forces you to face what most people spend their lives avoiding: themselves, your doubts, your unresolved pain, the stories you've repeated to yourself for years without ever questioning them. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In silence, the unconscious begins to surface. All the things buried under distractions slowly rise to awareness. And when they do, you face a choice. You can numb them again, or you can engage with them. That engagement is where real growth begins. It's where emotional strength is built. So the question becomes, how do you train that strength? How do you build a nervous system that doesn't panic at discomfort but responds with calm precision? By staying in silence a little longer than feels comfortable. Every time you resist the urge to respond impulsively, to defend your ego, or to chase a quick burst of approval, you are rewiring your brain. You're teaching it to choose purpose over performance. Socrates once said, "The greatest way to live with honor in this world is to be what we pretend to be." And each time you choose silence instead of reaction, you move a step closer to that ideal. You begin becoming the person who doesn't only talk about growth, but actually lives it, not for appearances, but because it's the person you choose to be when no one is watching. And let's be honest, it isn't easy. This inner training is messy. Some days it feels like progress, other days it feels like you're moving backward. But with time, the structure of your mind begins to change. The space between stimulus and response becomes wider. The hunger for recognition slowly fades. In its place grows a quiet confidence, a deeper sense of knowing, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because it is rooted in something stronger than validation. It is rooted in self-respect. Imagine waking up and truly knowing what you are building, who you are becoming, and why you are doing it. No noise in your mind pulling you toward comparison. No obsession with being understood, just clarity, a grounded sense of direction that doesn't depend on whether others notice or approve. That level of clarity never arrives through applause. It is constructed in silence, slowly, steadily, and often in solitude. You begin living not for validation, but for alignment. When your identity aligns with your actions day after day, something powerful happens. You stop needing others to confirm you're doing well. You already know. Why is that so difficult for most people? Because we've been conditioned to chase visibility instead of mastery, to broadcast effort instead of embodying it. But here's something both neuroscience and philosophy agree on. Your brain doesn't build identity from what you say. It builds identity from what you repeatedly do. The prefrontal cortex, the center of logic, planning, and discipline, doesn't respond to declarations. You can say, "I'm focused," but if your day is filled with chaos, your brain registers the contradiction. That gap creates internal conflict, a form of cognitive dissonance that slowly drains motivation. But reverse that pattern. If your actions consistently reflect your goals, even when no one is watching, your brain begins recognizing the pattern. It sees repetition, commitment, and discipline. Identity then stabilizes. That's when real motivation becomes internal. Not because someone praised you, but because you kept your own word. What does it look like when this transformation begins to take hold? You start craving progress more than praise. Consistency becomes more valuable than spectacle. Your dopamine system recalibrates. Instead of spiking at notifications or likes, it activates during quiet victories, finishing the work you promised yourself you would finish, pushing through resistance, holding yourself to higher standards without needing witnesses. Plato once wrote, "The first and best victory is to conquer self, and that victory is earned in silence, not in spectacle." Have you noticed that the people you truly admire rarely feel the need to explain themselves? They don't spend energy defending their process or narrating every move. They let their work speak. Their focus is sharp, their discipline visible, not through slogans or announcements, but through the results they consistently produce. That isn't just confidence, it's clarity. And clarity, as it turns out, is one of the most powerful psychological tools we possess. So why do they choose silence? Because it protects something far more valuable than public perception. It protects bandwidth. Every time you defend your decisions, you spend mental energy that could have refined them. Every time you explain your vision to someone who cannot understand it, you weaken your own focus. Silence is not withdrawal, it is preservation. It is the buffer where high-level thinking can exist without interruption. Aristotle believed that excellence is not a single act, but a habit. And habits are formed in quiet spaces, far from noise. They grow in the choices no one else sees, in the discipline that never gets posted online, in the hours of repetition that offer no instant reward. But eventually, that repetition turns into reality. That reality becomes identity, and that identity becomes power, the kind that cannot be taken away because it was never built for anyone else in the first place. Transformation, therefore, is not some dramatic cinematic moment where everything suddenly changes. It isn't one big breakthrough or a burst of motivation where you instantly fix your life. It's not about the goals you announce online or the promises you make to others. Real transformation is a system. It is daily, it is repetitive. Often it is boring, yet within that repetition, real power is forged. You don't rise to your goals. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. And this is the part many people overlook. Goals are emotional. You feel inspired, so you write something down. You get excited, so you take the first step. But emotions fade. Goals shift. Life interrupts. What remains is structure. Systems are built on behavior, not mood. And when you begin introducing structure into your life, waking up at the same time each day, moving your body regularly, eating with intention, clearing away unnecessary clutter, you stop relying on motivation. Instead, you start relying on rhythm, and rhythm is far more dependable than inspiration. Why does this matter so much? Because without structure, your mind begins to drift. Your emotions take control, and that leads to inconsistency, which is the enemy of identity. Aristotle once wrote that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not a single act but a habit. You don't become excellent by simply thinking excellent thoughts. You become excellent by building habits that support the person you want to become, one action at a time, and it often begins with the body. There's a reason Stoic thinkers trained themselves physically as well as mentally. They understood that discipline of the body reinforces discipline of the mind. When you train your body, you're not only improving health, you're reshaping your relationship with effort. You're teaching yourself to show up even when you don't feel like it. You're learning to tolerate discomfort, to move beyond resistance, to stay committed without immediate reward. That isn't vanity. That is inner development. But honesty matters here. The beginning is difficult. Silence can feel unnatural at first. Routine can feel restrictive. You will want to break it. You may feel the urge to prove to others that you're working hard. You might want to announce your progress just to gain approval. But that's the trap. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart." Silence is not emptiness, it is presence. When distractions disappear, when the noise and constant performance fade away, you are left with yourself. And that is where genuine transformation begins. The longer you remain in that discomfort, the more your mind adapts. Gradually, you stop craving the noise. The urgency fades. The fear of being unseen disappears. What remains is a quiet but powerful presence, steady, focused, and clear. You begin making decisions that truly align with who you are becoming. You stop explaining yourself to people who never made the effort to understand you. You continue walking your path, not because people are watching, but because it is your path. Have you ever noticed how the people who carry real presence in a room are often the quietest ones? It isn't about charisma, it's about coherence. They aren't scattered or performing. They've done the inner work and it shows. They choose silence not as withdrawal, but as refinement, as control. Socrates believed that the secret of change is focusing all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. That is exactly what silence allows you to do. Eventually, your quiet consistency becomes impossible to ignore. But by that point, recognition won't matter anymore. You'll already be living from a place of internal reward. You won't need applause to know you're on the right path. The peace you feel, the strength you carry, the clarity you protect, those become the reward. And no one can take that away from you because it was never given by the world. It was earned quietly. In the end, that's what real transformation looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady, grounded, deliberate, built from the inside out. Silence is not weakness. It is where true strength begins. In those quiet moments when no one is watching, you shape the version of yourself the world will eventually notice. You don't need to announce every step, just keep taking them, keep showing up. When the time is right, the results will speak for themselves. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay steady, stay focused, and whenever you're ready to return, we'll be here.